Hello everyone, this is JPL, and today I'm joined with,
Matthew here.
And I'm Toa.
yes, and we are the podcast name in brackets. We are back for another podcast here for the top 5 best video games. Yes.
Ooh.
So we're going to be talking about 5 video games that we really like. And the disclaimer that you guys want to give to us people here.
I haven't played every video game in existence, so I'm only doing games that I've finished, so it's an even smaller group of games that I'm choosing from, but these are, I think, some very good games.
My list is mostly just games that I've thought of recently. I think if you gave me a year, it would change drastically, but this is, I think, my favorites as of right now.
Yeah. These are games that I've enjoyed over the years. I would not consider myself a gamer. I've not played most video games in the world. I've only played a handful of games. And that being is just because I do not have the money, the equipment, nor the time to play all of these games. And so by the time I actually do get to the point to play those games, there'll be years later once those games come out. So, yeah, I get to experience these games from video game walkthroughs, which if you do not have the money or the patience, you can just go ahead and do that sometimes. So yeah, why don't we get started with Toa?
Alright, so I guess for number 5, my fifth favorite game is Super Smash Bros. Super Smash Bros. Is a platform fighting game released by Nintendo, where it features all of their mainline characters from their largest franchises, as well as some other cameos from other characters from other franchises. There are several different versions of Smash Bros, but the one I grew up on mostly was Super Smash Bros. Brawl. Even though objectively, as a competitive fighting game, Smash Bros. Brawl is probably the worst, but it holds a special place in my heart. It was just one of the first games that I really picked up and started playing a lot of, so I really enjoy it, and it's just one of those games that you can pick up, play, and have a good time with friends. So I just really respect it a lot.
Yeah, it's a great series. I also grew up with Brawl. I didn't actually ever own it, so it was always visiting friends' houses and playing with them, and then my sister got it for Christmas once, so then I could actually practice and get a little bit better at the game. But since then I own Ultimate and the 3DS one as well, so yeah, it's a great series. The reason I don't have it on my list is that I never have anyone who will play with me, so it's a little less fun when it's just me versus a computer player, but as a party game, when I can find people who are interested in it, it's always a great time.
Yeah, it's a great game to have with other people around. It's a good game for groups of people, and if you have the opportunity to play with someone else, that would be the best opportunity. I myself don't own the game, but I've played it whenever I go to someone else's house and they have the game and that's what they want to play. For instance, these two guys here, we've had a couple fun rounds with this game, and yeah, it's an enjoyable brawl experience to have. So yes, Matthew.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. My number 5 game is an indie game that came out a few years ago called Celeste. And Celeste is a 2D platformer. Very simple art style, very but the gameplay of it, it's very mechanically dense, and it's really fun to play. So you can watch gameplay footage, and yeah, it looks fine, but when you actually have the controller in your hand and you're playing the game, it's really fun. It's almost a puzzle game more than a platformer, but you have to do a lot of very quick moves, and yeah, it's one that's just really fun to get a handle on. And now that I finished it, every once in a while I'll just open up a level and replay it just to experiment with the mechanics and kind of figure out different cool things I can do. And it also has a light story, which is very touching, and yeah.
I've never played it, but I'm looking at videos now, and it looks pretty cool.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
it's a difficult game. It's one where you really feel like you've achieved something when you finish it.
Hmm.
I've never heard of this game. I don't think I've seen anything from this game, so I can't really speak about anything about this game. So, yeah. Anything else you want to add about it?
It's definitely worth. It's actually been on sale a few times, and it's available on most consoles and on PC. So it's worth, if you ever happen to see it on sale, picking it up and giving it a try, I think.
Okay. Well, moving on to my number 5. My number 5 comes from the Uncharted series. This series is a series of games from the company of Naughty Dog. It's action adventure games where you're going off finding these ancient treasures and lost cities, which is the plot of each game, and you're following the character of Nathan Drake, and it's a lot of fun characters, good storytelling, interesting twists and turns, really fun gameplay of all these elaborate sets that are fun to watch, are great spectacles. Like, you're escaping from a sinking ship, and you're also you're falling from a plane that's about to crash into the desert, and that's all in one game. But I think the one that I really want to talk about here is Uncharted 4, which is an ending to this main character of Nathan Drake. It does a good job at telling a very grounded stories. Normally the games have a supernatural element that comes in with the end of, oh, this treasure was actually cursed, but this one doesn't have any of that supernatural element, and it's just a really grounded tale that I think is the best of the games. It has a great story, great character moments. They gave it The Last of Us treatment of focusing on the characters than just the action and the spectacle. And those are cool too as well in this game, but the overall story of finding the pirate treasure is just a really fun experience to have. And I personally like these games for the spectacle and the humor and the characters. Not so much for the actual game itself, because to be honest, I've never played the game, so yeah.
Yeah,
I've always heard. Oh, go ahead.
I've never played the game either, but I have. From what I've seen, it looks very interesting. I've always been interested in playing it, but I don't own a PlayStation, so.
I was this past semester I was doing an internship, and one of the other guys I was interning with really liked Uncharted, and he explained it to me, and from what I understand, it sounds like a really good game. Like the pacing especially is really on point. So yeah.
So yeah, back to you, Tua.
All right, number 4. For my number 4 slot, I listed a game called Sanctum, specifically the sequel. Sanctum is it's a tower defense game, where you're building up defenses so that this horde of monsters can't attack your base. But the interesting thing about Sanctum and Sanctum 2 is that for these games, you are also in the game. So you can place down towers and upgrade turrets and all that. But at the end of the day, you're also there with a gun or a bazooka or a lightning rod thing trying to fend off these aliens from attacking your base. So it's really nifty. Most of the time, I get pretty distracted in games where I'm not involved very much. So tower defense games are fun for about 20 minutes, but Sanctum 2 is a game that I could play for hours on end just because I'm actually involved in fighting off the enemies to the point where there are some levels that I know well enough that I don't even have to place down towers because I know where the enemies are coming from and I can just defend it myself. The towers definitely help, but it's just an interesting twist on it to where I feel more immersed in the game, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't played this one either, but I'm watching gameplay footage, and yeah, usually I think of tower defense games as more idle games that maybe I'll play while I listen to a podcast or something, but this, yeah, it looks like an interesting twist on the genre.
Yeah, I normally know tower defense games as sort of mini games that come with like other games, mainly online MMOs that have for them. So yeah, I've not heard of this one. So
Yeah, it's a pretty solid game. I'm very sad, but I don't think the developers have come out with anything since Sanctum 2, and it came out a few years ago. So hoping that they'll release something soon, but until then, I'll just keep playing this one.
right, Matthew.
Okay, so for my fourth game I have, this is kind of a 2-in-1, maybe a bit of cheating here, but I'm going to talk about 999, which is also known as 9 Hours, 9 Persons, 9 Doors, and its sequel, Virtue's Last Reward. I haven't finished the third one in the series, but these are visual novel puzzle games, which kind of brings up like a specific image of like, well, it's a visual novel, must be like a dating game or an Ace Attorney, but these are actually, they're very interesting. They're horror games, with a lot of like twists and turns, and essentially the idea is you have to play through them multiple times, and each time you play through you learn a little bit of information, so you go back and use that information to unlock a different ending, and it's just really fun. And then the first game has a plot twist which is so good that the creator actually thought of the plot twist first and then built the game around that. And the second game, I actually had one of the plot twists spoiled, but there were so many plot twists I didn't even realize that it was a plot twist. And it was like, in the list of like the 10 plot twists in the game, it was one of the less surprising ones. And yeah, the writing is really good. The puzzles are difficult, maybe some of them a bit too difficult to be like, you have to do things that you wouldn't necessarily think of automatically. But yeah, they're really fun games, and they're available now on PC, remastered versions, so they aren't just on the DS systems.
Nice.
Yeah, I don't really know much about this game besides what you've told me about it, Matthew. I know that this was a game that had some inspiration for some fun personal projects that we had together, so...
Yes, it's the concept is easy to understand. So for all of the games, it's 9 people who are trapped in a location and they have to escape. And then there's different twists along the way as they try and figure out why are they trapped here and what exactly is going on. And yeah, it's a crazy series that kind of, you almost need a flow chart to keep track of everything that's going on. But what's brilliant is it all makes sense within the world of the series.
Mm. It looks really interesting. Like, I've seen a few visual novels where, like, it's, they've got puzzle elements. And sometimes it's just they have puzzle elements just so that the player doesn't get bored. But it looks like this one is more, it just from the vibes it gives me, it's almost like I guess an escape room in some ways.
Yeah. Yeah, that's it. Actually very much structures itself like an escape room, and each of the puzzles are actually, you have to find a way out of different rooms. So yeah, it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of, if you're into sort of the mind bending, what's going on, and figuring out all of the twists and turns, it's really great. And then there's also a lot of emotion to the plots, especially in the third game. It also, it kind of surprises you how emotional they can be.
Nice.
Okay. Well, moving on to my number 4, I have the game Minecraft. I think everyone knows about this game, even without ever playing it. But essentially, it's a game where there's not really a basic story to it, but you're in this world, and your task is just to go find resources and create whatever it is you want to create. And you can you have these creatures, these mobs, the zombies, skeletons that are your, I guess, your enemies throughout the game. But really, it's just it's an interesting experience. I like it because I like the environment of it. I like the whole mystery of, you're in this world, you have no idea what this world is about, and it's really, you create what this world means, and you can create all these fun stories that you can do. You can create these online mini games, you can do all these crazy things. And really, I like this game because there's a personal connection to it. I played it with some of these guys here, and really, it's something that I've connected with my friends, and I love creating stuff with them, and just it's a really fun thing that you can just play for hours and just not really realize that you've been playing for hours. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so Minecraft is one of those things where, like, it's pretty revolutionary for itself. Like, beforehand there weren't as many, like, sandbox games, especially none that had building, and crafting wasn't even really a huge thing in video games until Minecraft. But just all that it allows for is just fantastic. In fact, it was gonna be on my list, and then I saw that that John was gonna put it on his, so I was like, you know what? I will wait to talk about it then. But yeah, really great game, and especially for just hanging out with people. It's one of the better experiences.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've been playing since I got Pocket Edition on my mom's iPad in like middle school, and yeah, I'd probably spent more money on different versions of Minecraft than I spent on any other video game. Like, I have several Pocket Editions. I have it for my PC. I have it for 3DS. And yeah, I've sunk so many hours into it. It's very malleable. You get to do kind of whatever you want.
Yeah. It's one of those games that when it was first coming out, I just did not really want to get on the bandwagon. It's like, I wasn't really interested at all, but like once I actually found like videos about it, mainly Captain Sparkle's survival series and those Hunger Game mini games. You know, it really captured my attention, and then I just started playing it with these guys here, and so we started using it for school projects. And one sad thing about this game is because like I really want to play this game, but I don't really have the equipment to play it. It doesn't really play well on my computer, so it's like, I have to get a better computer to be able to play the game. And it's just like so oof, because I just really want to play the game. So
Yeah.
anyway,
All right. Are we on to number 3 then?
yeah.
All right, number 3. So for me, I listed one of my more childhood games that I think has been a pretty big impact in my life. So the whole Legend of Zelda franchise has been something that I started playing more and more in middle school and played more going forward. But when I was a kid, my dad ended up finding a Nintendo 64 in an old garage sale, and it came with a few games, and one of those games was The Legend of Zelda: Majora's Mask. At the time, I was like either 4 or 5, so immediately I got tons and tons of nightmares from that game. But the whole game is different from any other Zelda, and even though I'll admit right here now, I think the gameplay is not amazing. It's not groundbreaking. Obviously, Ocarina of Time came beforehand. Majora's Mask is a direct sequel to that, and Ocarina of Time really was more groundbreaking in those regards. Majora's Mask really refined some of that, but compared to newer age Zelda games, it's not quite as amazing. But what it does do really, really well is it has a really good sense of world building, to the point where even though, like, it's kind of crazy and the moon is falling and you have to constantly time travel backwards to prevent the world from exploding in 3 days, it gives you this sense of urgency as well as this sense of exploration, because you might go through one area on one day, and then you get this item, and then you reset time and go through that area again, and it's completely different now that you have this one item. So it really gets you to know the world there, and really resonate with the characters. I don't know, it's just a very nostalgic experience for me, and I'm sure that is part of the reason why it's on my list, is purely nostalgia. But I'm really fond of it. It's a really good game in my brain.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I originally had that on my list, but I figured that you would put it on your list, so I gave that spot to other games. But yeah, actually the first time I played it was at your house, and I remember it was the first 3D Zelda that I had played. Before that I had only played the original Legend of Zelda, which my dad had, and it's his favorite game, but I could just never get into it. But then playing Majora's Mask, I eventually, after playing it at your house, eventually I got it on the 3DS, and that's when I finally finished it. And yeah, I mean, it's a really good game, a really good sense of place, and yeah, one of the Zeldas that I've played, it is one of the best.
Yeah, I've never gone into Zelda or any of their games. Really, what I know from it is just pop culture and what you guys have talked to me about it. I don't know. It's not something that really interested me as a game, and probably never will. But I can appreciate it for its for what it means to you guys, and just small things like it's music that I enjoy. So, yeah.
Yeah. I will say, it still gives me nightmares every once in a while. Still have random nightmares of the moon falling, and then I'm freaked out when I wake up. But that's part of its greatness, I think.
Yeah, it's a creepy game in the best way possible.
Yeah.
All right. On to you, Matthew.
Okay, so my third game is Metal Gear Solid 3 Snake Eater. This is a classic game. I actually played it on the 3DS, which it was an interesting experience. It's really cool having the 3D. But yeah, this is a game that takes place during the Cold War. It's a U.S. super soldier gets sent into Russia to infiltrate this base, and he's fighting against his former teacher, and it's all emotional and crazy. It's a Hideo Kojima game, so the plot is insane. The character names are weird and strange. But this is just, I mean, it's a brilliant game. It's a stealth game, and a lot of the fun of the game is actually you get to like change your costume to match your surroundings so you blend in better, or sneak up on guards. There are some like simulator elements of it where if you go away from the game for a week and you come back, all of your food will be spoiled. So it's a really interesting game, really a precursor to, I think, a lot of action games today. And the plot, even though the plot is kind of insane and the ending isn't my favorite, there's some really great moments throughout where even on the 3DS you get this just epic sense of emotion and place. It's a really stunning game, and I was surprised playing it quite a while after it had originally come out on a handheld system that it held up really well.
That's really interesting.
And I will say, like, mechanically there are a few things that haven't aged quite as well. I've also played Metal Gear Solid 5, which has better mechanics, but the story in that just isn't as good.
That's fair. Metal Gear is one that I always heard of, but I never really got into.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah,
that's nifty.
I know it through its pop culture references and through all the memes that happen. Maybe I've seen a death battle or two about the characters, but besides that, I don't really know much about these games.
Yeah, they are, the plots are a bit insane. Like I said, the characters, there's a character in this one whose name is The Fear, I think. That was either this one or a different one, but regardless, it's just like, and the main character's name is Snake. It's hilarious, and yet there's still a lot of impact to it. And yeah, I was surprised I hadn't played any other Metal Gear games or really been interested in the series at all before I played this one, but yeah, it really holds up.
Right.
Nice.
Going on to my number 3 is the video game Alien Isolation. This is a video game that takes place within the Alien franchise 15 years after the first movie, where you play as Ripley's daughter, Amanda, who is trying to find any semblance about what happened to her mother. So she goes out to the station to find the flight recorder, and she runs into an alien while she's there. It's a survival game where you're trying to escape this station before the alien gets you, and before the station eventually blows up. And what's fun about this game is that it's a love letter to the Alien franchise. They perfectly set up the mood of the world of Alien. They have that perfect 70s inspiration of what their gritty future would look like. It looks really good. The music is very fantastic. It just works well with the game, and it also calls back a lot to the original movies. The story itself is, it's actually a pretty good story about this character looking for a mother, find out what happened to her, and I think one of the great things about this game is just the tension of the alien. Like, this game has a lot of tension. It's one of the scariest parts of this game. It's just like, instead of having all these jump scares, you just have the tension of knowing there's an alien around this corner, or he's in the vents. You don't really know where the alien is, but you know he's there. And so that tension just rises throughout the game, and it just keeps going. It just gets so tense throughout this game, and it's just like, I don't think I could ever play this game because just how tense I would get from playing it. That's just how good and scary the game is. I won't spoil anything that happens in the game besides what everybody said, but yeah, it's a good game, and it's a good accomplishment of the AI made for the alien, who is actually hunting you throughout the station. And like, every time you do something to avoid the alien, the AI takes that and learns from that. And so the more you do a tactic to get away from the alien, the more that the alien learns from that tactic and anticipates that tactic. And so you have to change where you hide, you have to change what tool you use to get away. And so if you keep using the same thing, that sucker's gonna find you. So really good game.
Yeah, I've especially heard good things about the AI in it. Coming from, I'm pursuing a major in computer science. It's really cool to see like a game where they're really taking advantage of modern computing to implement this AI that is actually smart enough to figure these things out. Just because it's kind of like a video game cliche where, like, the first few times you play a game, right, you're a little bit spooked, but then you figure out, oh, okay, the AI just walks in this pattern. As long as I walk around it, it's fine. But Alien Isolation, no, you can't just do that, which is really, I really think it's mind-boggling. I think it's personally pretty revolutionary for games, and I can't wait to see other games implement that, but it's pretty amazing that they did that here.
Yeah, I'd be interested to see a sequel to this game, but more in a colonial marines type setting. Something to fix that botched game that they had a few years back. So, yeah, it's not a perfect game. There are a few small nitpicks that you can pull apart. Mainly the AI for the humans is not the best, but besides that, it's really good. And for the most part, it's smart AI. If you go into a room and the androids or the alien knows that you went to this room and there's no way out, and you hide into a locker, logically speaking, you're in that locker and they'll find you, even though they didn't see you go in there. So that's pretty neat.
Yeah, I've never played this game, but I've considered it. But knowing myself, even though I love horror movies, and some of the games I play are horror games, but usually survival games and first-person shooters that are horror games, I've never been able to get through that. So as much as I'm tempted to try this out, I don't think I would make it particularly far.
Yeah. Alright, back to you, Tua.
All right, so for my number Oh, we're on 2 now. Yet another sequel. Um, so just a brief discussion here. Most of my games on this list have been sequels. Sanctum 2, Zelda Majora's Mask, and now this one that I'll talk about in just a second. The main reason why I have a lot of sequels on here, I think, is just kind of a cool thing. Video game sequels versus like movie sequels are very different. Oftentimes, movie sequels are created just to capitalize on the fact that, hey, we made a lot of money on the first one. Video game sequels tend to go above and beyond from what they originally did. And I don't think any game represents that more than Risk of Rain 2. Now, the original Risk of Rain was a 2D platformer in the genre of what's called a roguelike, which essentially means you're going through several stages, fighting enemies, picking up items that will help you. But as you go, the game gets exponentially harder. So you have to make sure you're getting the items that you need in order to advance further without dying. And your goal is essentially just to advance as far as possible without dying. I believe in Risk of Rain 1 there was a final boss. As of right now, Risk of Rain 2 is still in early development. But Risk of Rain 2 is, in my opinion, just fundamentally better. Largely because they took a genre that was pretty much only in either top-down 2D or platformer 2D, and they made it into 3D. So in Risk of Rain 2, you start as one of several characters that crash landed on a alien planet. And essentially, you get there, things start attacking you, so you fight back. You get gold, and as you get gold, you can buy items that will help you with the run. Once you find a teleporter, you have to fight a boss, kill the boss, and then advance to the next stage. And you essentially keep doing that. The twist is, it just keeps on getting harder. And on top of that, everything in the game, every achievement that you unlocks a new item or a new character or a new ability. So even though I think I have over 100 hours logged on this game already, each run that I do is drastically different. Partially because of randomization, partially because of unlocks. And to me, I think that's really cool. On top of the fact that it's multiplayer, so you can have up to 4 people in this game, and it does its multiplayer pretty well, in my opinion. So for me, it's just a really fun game to grab a few friends, try and get as far as we can, maybe even throw some different, wrenches into the system, like, hey, you can't pick up this item, or you can only pick up one of each kind of item, type of thing. Can really make some of the runs fun. And then on top of that, in case that wasn't enough, Risk of Rain 2 also has this underlying story to it. One where if you don't care about the story in the game, you don't even have to worry about it. But every single item that you unlock, or character that you unlock, or enemy that you find, you get some lore. And a lot of the back story lore can be really cool, or a little bit creepy sometimes. And there's always this really fun sense of mystery of, hey, we're on this alien world, but also something else is going on here. So I'm really excited to see them finish this game up, and I'll probably be playing it for a long time to come. It's just a really great game.
Yeah, I haven't played many roguelikes, but it's a genre that I find interesting in how do they approach having the player want to come back even after they've not like after they've died. So yeah, that sounds very interesting, and like it has a lot of potential.
Yeah, I've not really heard of this game, so uh, I can't really speak much about it.
All right, on to Matt then.
Okay, so my number two game is another maybe more visual novel type game, although this one has a lot more gameplay to it, and it's called Night in the Woods. And the idea is this is about May, who is a cat who comes home early to her hometown from college and hangs out with her friends, but there's also something strange going on in the town. And so it's kind of a mystery, story driven. There's a bit of horror in it as well. And yeah, this is just a really great game. It has a lot of great characters, and it's really fun. You play one day at a time, and there are different things that you can do every day. You can go up and try and pet the cat at the top of the building in town, or you can go and talk to the pastor at the church, or do different things. But then there's also a broader story going on. And it's very thematically deep as well. It has a lot to say about sort of small town America and the struggles that people face with losing their jobs or kind of feeling isolated. So yeah, it's a really interesting, really fun game to play through and explore the world. And it isn't very long either. I think I finished it the first time around in about 10 hours, but I've played through it again since then, and it's just a lot of fun.
Hmm. Yeah, this is one that I hadn't heard of, but I'm looking at some gameplay videos, and the art looks really interesting. It's almost music video esque, is the feeling that I get from it. But it looks really nifty.
Yeah, it's a beautiful game. Every night there are these dream segments that the lighting for it just is really great. And then yeah, the characters especially, there's a lot of great the writing and the dialogue, the music as well. It's a very strong game.
Hmm.
Hmm.
Yeah, I've never heard of this game, nor have I played it, so. Huh. Okay. So moving on to my number two is from the Portal games. I'm mainly going to focus on the second one, but they both generally have the same feel to them. So of the Portal games are you're a character who wakes up in a testing facility, and you essentially are supposed to solve these puzzles using portals. A portal gun that shoots two different portals that you go through and solve these puzzles, and there's an underlying mystery and plot twists that tend to happen in the middle and the ends of the game. So yeah, I won't review anything about them so that you could maybe experience them yourself because they're really good. These games are really fun. They have some really funny dialogue. One thing that I particularly love about these games is the ambiance of it, just the whole surroundings. I love the world that it's set in. It's based in the world of Half-Life, which is a game series that belongs to Valve, who I believe created Steam. Is that correct?
Yep.
Yes. And so it's interesting to see just some typics about just maybe what happened to this world. Where are the other people? Why am I the only one here? What's with those plants? Why is the cake alive? I don't know. But, it's interesting to solve these puzzles because these puzzles are really fun to solve. It's enjoyable to listen to all these character interactions, mainly from the popular character of GLaDOS. And, that's what I'm going to say about it right now.
Yeah, Portal is one of those games that, like, I don't even know how to categorize it, but it's one of those things that, like, walkthroughs and such are really good, but actually being able to play it yourself is a completely different experience.
Yeah.
Portal is super unique in that it uses physics that I don't think I've ever seen another game really do, in how you use the portals and how, because it's a puzzle game, you really get to see what the limits are to these portals, and realize that even though there are a lot of limits in, like, where you can place portals and whatnot, there's so much you can do with such a simple concept. So I think Steam I think Valve and the team behind Portal did a fantastic job with it.
Yeah. Valve specifically throughout the years have created some really fun revolutionary games in their time. Specifically the Half-Life games and the Portal games have done something to introduce a new technology to help innovate the industries, like the physics engine and then the Portal physics, and just all the different things that they've done that just really help to make games better. I like to say that Valve is the George Lucas of video games.
Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah, I've played both Portals as well, and they are very good games. I didn't get the opportunity to play them for a while after they had come out, just because the computer that I had access to in high school wasn't particularly good at handling video games. But when I went off to college and got my own computer, I was able to play them, and yeah, definitely, as you said, playing them is a completely different experience from watching playthroughs of them, just because the mechanics are so fun.
Yeah. I believe like these games were some that I didn't really get into when they were first came out. I thought I wasn't really enticed by them. I thought maybe they were overrated, but it wasn't really till I saw top 10s and Watch Mojos that like really got me to know more about the game and really got me maybe interested in it. So, I got to see some walkthroughs, and I just really enjoy it. So yeah. On to Tua.
All right, so last but certainly not least, especially since we're going in this direction for our favorites. So for my top game, I was considering not putting this as first because I get very frustrated at it sometimes. But I think based off of just how much time I put into it, as well as the fact that I've been playing it for several years and I still come back to it, either it's a good game or a very abusive relationship. I listed my top favorite video game as Smite. Smite is a MOBA, which is a multiplayer online battle arena. It's the genre that is shared by Smite, as well as League of Legends, Dota 2, Heroes of the Storm. This genre blew up probably around 2014, 2015. It isn't quite as big now, but especially like League of Legends is still doing amazing. Dota 2 still has a really big fan base. And Smite still does okay. What sets Smite apart from the others, to me, is that it's not over the top. You're not clicking to move. You're not clicking to attack. You're actually in a third-person camera perspective. So you get to play as your character, not as someone in the sky controlling your character, which to me is really important. Again, my attention span is not great, so I have to really be immersed in a game to enjoy it, and Smite does that really well. On top of the fact that it's like that, I think it's also really cool because all of the characters are essentially characters from ancient mythologies, whether that be Greek, Roman. Goodness, there's so many pantheons. Let me see. Okay. You got Greek, Roman, Hindu, Egyptian, Norse, Mayan, Chinese, Japanese, Celtic, Slavic, Voodoo, which is kind of a meh. Voodoo is not really a... Anyways, Polynesian, Arthurian, and Yoruba now. At the time of this recording, there's over 100 gods, and it's, to me, it's really cool, because I've learned a lot while playing this game. Not just about the game, but about different cultures and different mythologies. And I think that's just a really interesting aspect. They really took an idea and really fleshed it out really cool. Hi-Rez, the company that makes the game, tries to, when they're making games, oftentimes they'll take a familiar concept and really try and make that better. Which, in some cases, like Smite, worked out really well. In others, it looks more like they're just copying other games. But with Smite, they did a great job. At this point, I have, according to Steam, I have logged 1,685 hours on it. And that is only counting the time since it's been on Steam, because I played for a few years beforehand. So it's a good game, and especially a lot of my friends play it. I don't think I would be playing it as much if my friends didn't, but I like games like this because you really fill a role, and your job becomes that role. So for me, I generally fill the support role, which in Smite means that I am trying to defend my allies, cast spells to frustrate my enemies, and really essentially take hits for my allies, which for me is just a really fun role to fill. Other people prefer to have roles where they cast abilities that deal a lot of damage, or shoot attacks that clear all the minions out of the way. For me, I just like to annoy my enemies and help my allies. But yeah, overall, it's a fun game. It can be frustrating. There are definitely balancing issues, but at the end of the day, as long as I got friends to play it, I will continue to keep playing it. So.
Yeah, I mean, I don't tend to play online games for several reasons, but one of the biggest issues that I've had with multiplayer games is they aren't particularly fun to watch. But since Smite is so from a third person, like more closely interacting with the other characters, I think it's more visually interesting. Yeah, my roommate plays a lot of League of Legends, and I've never found it all that interesting watching him, but watching gameplay from Smite definitely looks much more engaging.
Yeah.
Right. I don't really know much about this game. What I do know, I know from you, Toa, because I know that you really enjoyed it, so, yeah.
Yeah.
On to Matthew.
Okay, so my top game is another tie, just because I couldn't pick between these two. And originally, I was also going to put Majora's Mask here, but we already talked about that. So my two top games are The Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess and The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. So I'll start with Twilight Princess. Twilight Princess was the first 3D Zelda game that I played start to end. I had a summer where I had a broken leg, so I couldn't really do much. So I played this pretty much all the time. I played 60 hours, which for me was quite a bit of time. in a video game, and just absolutely loved every moment of it. The setting is very interesting. The characters in the world, it has a much more in-depth story than most Legend of Zelda games. So yeah, it was just really great. And then about a year ago, I finally got a Nintendo Switch and started playing Breath of the Wild, and it is just a really fun game. It's a very exploration focused game, and exploration is my favorite thing to do in video games. So the idea that I could just run and do whatever I want, and like when I played Skyrim, the first thing I did is I climbed the tallest mountain I could find, and at the top there was like an item that really didn't do much for me. But in Breath of the Wild, you climb a mountain and there's something really important at the top of it because it's built for that kind of exploration. So I've logged in the last year about over 200 hours in Breath of the Wild, just exploring, running around. I finished the game, but I still play it because it's just so much fun.
Yeah, I recently picked up Breath of the Wild. I got a Switch a little while ago, mostly to play Smash Bros. On. But more recently, I was like, you know what? I'm gonna go ahead and get Breath of the Wild, and that game is amazing. It takes the original, like, that feeling from the original, like, few Zeldas, where you're just kind of there and you're exploring, and like, yeah, there's an objective to like save the day and all, but it really feels like it's a whole world just for you to explore. And it takes the idea of, it's all about the journey, not the destination, and really runs with that. I really think it's one of the best Zelda games out there, just because of, like, it's got a really good polish to it, but also it really allows you to play how you want to play. If a puzzle is too hard, most of the time you don't have to do the puzzle. But also, if the puzzle is too hard from one way, maybe you flip the puzzle upside down, and that's how you solve it. Because it's running a real physics engine, you can do things in a lot of your own ways. Like even just attacking a bokoblin camp, you could run in and just slash them up as best you can, or you could wait out on a cliff and start chucking bombs down at them, or you could try and burn everything down, and the list goes on and on and on, just because there's so many different ways to tackle a problem there. I think that's fantastic.
Yeah, it's a really intuitive game. Any idea you have of how to solve something, it's likely that it's going to work out at least some way. You think, oh, I can light this thing on fire, and yeah, it lights on fire, or just very, very in-depth systems. And it makes playing it, like, you can play and explore in it so much. And I mean, the ability to climb walls, any game that I've played after playing Breath of the Wild that I can't climb walls just suddenly feels restrictive.
Yeah.
It's a really great step forward for the series. I do have some criticisms of it. I think I missed having dungeons and some of the more puzzle solving elements, but the game is just so good that after a while you don't even care that it doesn't have those things, because it's just so much fun to run around and explore.
Yeah.
Yeah, I only really know this game from you guys, so yeah. Moving on to my number one is from the Batman Arkham series. So it's really difficult because I enjoy all the games from the Arkham series. Maybe not Origins as much, but I think the game that I'm gonna focus is probably on the first one, Arkham Asylum. And I'm a big Batman fan. I grew up with Batman. I grew up with the animated series as well. And so this game, the first game, is you're Batman, and you take the Joker to Arkham Asylum, who, while in transit, escapes, and really the game is about you going around Arkham Asylum trying to capture the Joker, and it's a really fun game. I've been following this series since the very beginning when it first came out, and it's just I've enjoyed every entry. I think one thing that I just really love about this game is just I love how you you view the world as Batman. You get to play as Batman, and you really feel like a Batman. The combat in these games are really fun. You can sneak around and do all these stealth takedowns, and just one thing I really love about these games as well is just the character designs. I believe that these are the best designs that some of these characters have had, and I also believe that these are the best performances that I've had for these characters. I believe this is like the best Mark Hamill performance for the Joker and the best Kevin Conroy performance for Batman. It's just I enjoy all of them, and I just love Batman. So yeah, and I've actually played these games. So yeah, that's a plus. So yeah.
Yeah, I've played a bit of the first game. Unfortunately, I haven't played it as consistently as I've wanted to, so I haven't been able to finish it yet. But yeah, it's a lot of fun. The mechanics work really well. It does a great job of putting you in the role of Batman, more than I think other Batman games really do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I recently picked it up on, I think it was free on the Epic Games Store a little while ago, so I was like, I'll pick it up. I've yet to play it, but I've seen gameplay of it, and I've always heard that the combat especially is really good. So, yeah, and obviously, I've listened to clips of the voice acting, and it is always so impressive to me. I think that's the biggest part for me that I know about and really enjoy about those games.
Yeah. Very fun games. And I believe that is all that we have for this top 5 list. I'm going to briefly name off a few titles that could have made the list, but because this is top 5, they didn't make it. The Fallout games, mainly for their just world building and just the ambiance that has. Then the Assassin's Creed, because I just think the concept of the Assassins is really cool. And the specific game for that one is Syndicate, which I really love the music for. Also the many Lego games that came out. This Lego Star Wars, the Lego Batman, Lego Indiana Jones. Games that I grew up as a kid. They're really fun to play. And then, of course, there's Star Wars Battlefront games, including the new ones. They have their issues, but they're also still fun to play. And a lot of other video games that I could list off, but that would take a long time. So, any of you guys have titles that you want to talk about real quick?
I have a few that I've played but haven't finished, so since I was only talking about games that I've actually finished, I didn't include them. But Dark Souls and BioShock Infinite were both games that I wanted to include. Dark Souls is a game that when I started playing it, I really didn't like it, just because it was so difficult, and then eventually I got to the point where I liked it because it's so difficult. I'm still not particularly far though, so I can't say if I recommend it or not. Still haven't quite gotten good. And then with BioShock Infinite, it's one of the only first-person shooters that I've played and enjoyed the mechanics of. I've been working my way through it, so I still haven't finished it, but looking forward to it being on Switch, and I'm planning on playing it there.
Nice. Yeah, there's a lot of the games that I play are more like group games, whether it's cooperative or just multiplayer in general. But of a few that I enjoy, Speedrunners is really fun. It's kind of just a party game where you're just doing general platforming stuff, but it's kind of fun to just get into that groove. Another one is Brawlhalla. It's essentially the Steam version of Smash Bros. It's a little different, but it's fun in its own right. The main reason why I include Smash Bros. Instead of Brawlhalla, just because I have a bit of a more nostalgic history with Smash Bros. And I think in a lot of ways Smash Bros. Is more polished, but I do think the gameplay of Brawlhalla is just a tad bit better in my opinion. More recently, I started playing this cooperative game called Trine. It's actually a series, and it's kind of a puzzle game where you get to control one of 3 characters. If you have 3 people playing, it's actually really, really fun. But it's interesting in that I haven't really seen very many puzzle games where you really need to have 3 players in order for it to do well. So that in and of itself just feels very interesting to me.
All right, is that all we have for today?
Oh, I was also
That's
going
all
to
I can think of.
quickly mention Mario Kart. I've played a lot of Mario Kart 8 for the Switch especially. Really good racing game.
Yeah.
Oh, and also
All right.
Skyrim, which is, and as exploration and open world games go, it is very good.
Yeah.
I don't know much about Skyrim besides what you guys told me, but yeah. So if that's all that we have for today, then all right. Thank you guys for listening, and then we will see you all next time. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.